This week, House Republicans advanced some legislation to increase border security. They are very much aware and concerned that the May 11th deadline for the end of Title 42 is quickly approaching. And so they're putting forth some legislation to, frankly, try to force the Biden administration to enforce the law, to secure the border, and to reduce the illegal flow of immigration. That bill should reach the floor maybe not next week, maybe the week after, first week of May, sometime along that time frame. And, you know, the Biden administration is already facing intense criticism for its mismanagement of the border. And the question now is, will the president actually work with Republicans to implement a solution? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Rich McCormick. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. He represents the 6th Congressional District of Georgia. Congressman McCormick, Dr. McCormick, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Great to see you, Jody. You're looking good.
Hey, you're looking good too, my friend. Always good to see you, and appreciate, very proud of the work that you're doing. All right, Dr. McCormick, let's begin with this border legislation that House Republicans are seeking to advance here probably the week after next. What can you tell us about the basics of what's in that bill?
So we just reviewed it with my legislative team today. As a matter of fact, your former legislative director is now mine. So a great conservative, understands the bills very well. We were just talking about how they were going to basically demand that we had the wall completed by 2028. I thought it was interesting because it's already been funded. Congress has already deliberated this before and said we need to have a wall. We need to have a border security. We need to have a sovereign nation. One of the things that I want to see, to put a little meat in this, is that we actually have a year-by-year minimum completion rate. I hate that Congress has to come up with a budget every year, and a lot of the budget is downstream. In other words, if something's going to be completed 5 years from now, that doesn't really give us teeth. If next year we can redo the budget and get rid of that requirement altogether. I think we need to have a year-by-year requirement, not just a 5-year or a 10-year plan like we do with so many of the budgetary things we do up here.
Sounds like a good idea. Well, listen, let's go into some of the issues that are taking place on the border. It never ceases to amaze me, this administration, how many top-level members of this administration have not even been to the border, and yet they are continuing to say it's secure and all this sort of stuff. You serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The Biden administration announced yesterday that it plans to establish an immigration processing center, a series of centers, if you will, all throughout Latin America. And they're claiming that these regional centers are somehow going to help slow down the number of migrants coming to the U.S. Do you agree with that?
Not at all. I think the reason they don't go to the border is because ignorance is bliss. They don't want to know about the problem. They don't really want to solve the problem. If they thought that these immigrants were coming here to vote Republican, they'd be standing on your desk right now. They'd be screaming at the tops of their lungs that, oh, look at the crime that's coming here. Look at the drugs that are coming here that kill hundreds of thousands of Americans. Look at the disease process. Look at the overwhelmed hospital systems. Look at the burden on the taxpayer who has to actually take this. Look at the lack of a sovereign border. They'd be saying all those things that they thought they were coming here to vote Republican. However, what they think is that they buy the vote correctly if they make them into liberals by getting them used to getting handouts. Then they'll just continue to expand their control of government into the future by expanding the most reliant on the government, which is going to basically reinforce a socialist/communist government system into the future.
And that's what's so frightening about this. I actually, to go on with this, I've got a couple of clips that I want to play for you and get your reaction. This first one is Secretary Mayorkas. He made this claim about their so-called comprehensive plan that they've developed and that they plan on executing. Listen to this.
We are building lawful pathways for people to come to the United States without resorting to the smugglers. At the same time, we are imposing consequences on those who do not use those pathways and instead irregularly migrate to our southern border. This plan has proven effective.
This plan has proven effective. I mean, come on. If I didn't burst out crying, I'd burst out laughing with this. This is absolute absurdity. Give me your basic thoughts with this.
But this has got to be the worst plan. First of all, he's not selling to anybody, because anybody who lives down in Texas knows why we're actually converting Democrats over Republicans, because they understand, even people who have immigrated here from Mexico understand that there has to be a sovereign border. People understand. We're right now having a incredible springtime of Republicans who came from the Hispanic community, who are female, who are true conservatives, who want the American dream, who want people to come here legally, not illegally. Everything they do rewards illegal behavior. Let's get that straight. They're not rewarding legal behavior. As a matter of fact, they punish it. They make it very difficult to get here legally and very easy to get here illegally. Everything they've done has made this worse. This is one of the worst border. Actually, I would say it is the worst border crisis we've ever had in America, and it keeps on getting. I love the fact that it's getting highlighted by all the problems we have in society. I just hate the fact that we have to be burdened with it, and that they're not doing anything other than say that it's good policy and that it's working. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's all talk, but there's nothing behind it. I want to play this one more clip, and then I want to go to another topic if we can. But as is typical with the administration, they blame everybody else. And Mayorkas says it's all Congress's fault. Look at this clip.
But we cannot do everything that we need to do until Congress provides the needed resources and reforms. We call on Congress to provide the resources we need to continue our work.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What resources they're asking for is more people to process the illegal immigrants to come here, to encourage that same process of encouraging more and more people to come here to be a burden on ourselves. I'm not against legal immigration, but what I'm against is encouraging people to come here just because. And the fact is, they just want more money to process more people to come here, which is going to just create a bigger flow, which means your new people that you're going to put all this money into will be overburdened immediately, because they're like, oh, look, the floodgates are open. We're just going to keep on flowing. It is not a good process. Throwing money at this without having a sovereign border, throwing money at it without having a solid plan is ridiculous. They need to follow the laws we have right now. Stop trying to just circumnavigating our laws. Absolutely.
All right, if we can, let's switch gears. I know our time is kind of getting past us here, but you serve on the Select Committee on the coronavirus pandemic, and you guys heard testimony this week from Randy Reichgarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers. What did you learn in that hearing?
Well, first of all, she's a political hack. Let's face it, as the only physician in Congress who's actually treated thousands of coronavirus patients, it was amazing to me that I got censored and she was actually able to affect CDC policy. As a non-scientist, somebody who basically invested $60 million into political activity, she is absolutely a political hack. She didn't care to get the teachers back into the classroom. She knew it was affecting children in a negative way. She showed no intention of actually following real science, but actually wanted to manipulate science so they could do exactly what they wanted. And they didn't want to take any chances, even though they knew they were essential. They were essential employees, just like an ER doc, like myself. I had to go to work. I had to see sick patients. They weren't talking about symptomatic children. They were talking about asymptomatic children just trying to learn, and actually them coming to school and actually doing their job rather than staying home and avoiding the children.
We've got about 45 seconds left, and just for our viewers and listeners, that's why I refer to you as Dr. McCormick. You probably saw thousands of patients during the pandemic, and now you're serving in Congress. What you said, I think, is extremely important. You, a doctor, a professional, a scientist, you know what you're talking about, and you were censured while these teachers did not go by the science, but they had the listening ear and were able basically to establish policy. About 30 seconds.
They were absolutely, matter of fact, because of their political contributions, how powerful they are, they were actually able to influence CDC policy. You could literally see verbatim wording from things that they submitted to them. This is ridiculous when we see an outside influencer of somebody who's just basically political and not scientific, not actually benefiting the people they're supposed to be serving. If I made legislation that benefited me instead of a patient, it would be a bad idea. They were actually advocating for themselves with no consideration for children, and I thought that was just unforgivable.
We're going to have to leave it there. Dr. Rich McCormick, Congressman Rich McCormick, thank you so much for joining us on Washington Watch.